Brilliant. Thank you for that introduction. I'm just making sure everything is working on my computer, which, well, we'll see. Yeah, hi everyone. This is just my desktop background. It's not actually part of my talk, but I hope you like it. So yeah, my name is Antonio Roberts. I'm actually from Leicester as well, so born here, but live in Birmingham. Just a little bit of trivia there. If someone could edit my Wikipedia page and put that on, that would be great. But yeah, so I'm an artist, musician, curator, person who just do a lot of artwork, and I make a lot of my artwork using digital technologies. This computer that I'm using is Linux based. That kind of leans into what I'm going to be talking about as well. And yeah, so today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Algorave scene and the live coding scene that I'm a part of. Don't worry, I'll explain what that is very shortly. And I'll be talking about that, but less the what it is, but more how we organize ourselves, how we organize ourselves and around the technology, and how we make very kind of conscious decisions about the technology that we're using, specifically around decentralization as well. So yeah, I shall begin. So I say I've got slides, it's just a bunch of pictures. So just firstly, hello. My username is Hello Cat Food everywhere. My website is Hello Cat Food. Find me everywhere at Hello Cat Food. So so before I begin, first I just need to kind of offer a few definitions, because I'll be talking about open source and decentralization and algorithms. So firstly, what is open source software? Briefly, open source software is software in which the source code for it, the ingredients, the coding behind it, is free and available to anyone to use, study in nearly whatever way they choose to see fit. There are nuances around that, but generally speaking, you got the code, you can use it, you can modify it, you can edit it. So that's what open source software is. What about, and examples of open source software that you may be familiar with: the Firefox web browser, maybe OBS Studio, where's my mouse? Or maybe something like Blender. Blender is free and open source. So these are just some tools. If you haven't used them before, these are some examples of open source software which are quite popular. So what about this thing called Algorave? What is that? So Algorave, it's a portmanteau, a combination of two words, algorithm and rave. You put it together, you have Algorave. The term was coined in 2012. Of course, electronic music has existed before that, but being packaged and approached in the Algorave way started in 2012. And at least here in the UK, there's been quite a lot of events since then. Certainly where I live in Birmingham, there's been festivals, Supersonic Festival, Green Man Festival. People who make music and art in this way have performed at events at Glastonbury as well, and I've travelled the world and so on. So I first became aware of what Algorave was by actually participating in one. In 2014, I went to Gateshead to perform at an Algorave. And I guess prior to that, I had made a lot of artwork, digital art, videos before, and a lot of it was made using open source software. But, I was working within the art sector, within galleries, with musicians, with performers, with artists, but yeah, still very much within the more fine art side of things. And I've been doing that since around 2008. And going into Algoraves, I'll show a few pictures here. Going into performing at Algoraves, what really struck me is that they go against a lot of the norms that I was finding in the design world. And I'm going to make some generalizations here because I'm going to be talking about, I guess, my experience. So I can only attest to my experience. But at least going to a lot of these Algoraves, so many people were using open source software, which me coming from a design background was just, especially in 2008, it was largely unheard of. And so it was quite exciting to see people who were using open source software, but also building it as well. It's not a requirement of performing at these live coding events, but so many people were building or customizing their software themselves. So these are just some pictures of people performing at these Algoraves, and you can probably see from the pictures, people are basically making art and music using code. If you were sitting here earlier, you might have seen a video playing that was an example of one. So they're making music and art using code and to show that they display the code being projected or shown on a big screen so you can kind of see the event unfolding. You can see the process of them making the artwork unfold in real time. And I'll play a little video for those who... Actually, no, I'll wait for a second because I'll show you an example. So yeah, people who are playing at these events were using this open source software, and I just was really amazed by it. And one of the most widely used pieces of software for making music within this community is called Tidal Cycles, and it's developed by a person called Alex McLean, who's also one of the people who coined the term live coding. And it's, for the technical heads amongst us, it's built on top of Haskell and uses Super Collider for its sound synthesis. But otherwise, it makes very good music. You can use it to make music using code. And the code for it looks a little bit like this sometimes. Again, this isn't a presentation about how to use this software. Come to one of my workshops instead. But you can see here there's a bit of a language to describe how it works. At the top you can see where it's a sound kick, that's going to play a kick drum. And then towards the bottom you can see where it says note, and it's got some like C major, minor, so it's going to play some notes within those chord ranges and so on. And it's, I'm typing all of this out and the audience would see this. What does it sound like? Well, let me play you a little video. It is a little video. So this is Alex McLean and myself playing. I'm making visuals, he's making sound. So yeah, only a very short demonstration there. But actually, I'll just play it one more time. I have it play on mute. So you can see there a little bit of a demonstration of what it looks like and the kind of music it can make. People have been using it a lot to make all different various kinds of music, but it lends itself, I think, to very percussive, heavy music. But yeah, people have made ambient, pop, what have you. They've made all sorts. And it's hard to put numbers on it, but I'd say, like, with all the algorithms that I've been to all over the world and seeing performances online, a lot of people are using Tidal because, well, I can't say why or because, but a lot of people are using this software. There are other softwares out there that people have made and are using, but for music, like even here as well, like this is Graham Dunning and Lucy Cheeseman performing collaboratively using Tidal Cycles. And another person also using Tidal Cycles for their music. So that's like an example of at least open source software within this space that people are using to make music. In terms of visuals now, the most very widely used piece of software is one called Hydra. Hydra is built using JavaScript and WebGL by a person called Olivia Jack. Amazing person, very talented. And as with Tidal, I'd say, again, most people are using it because it's quite easy to use. You can get really nice looking visuals like this. I'll play a video in a second. Actually, I'll play the video now. Yeah, so you can get really nice looking visuals with very little code, but then also it can increase in complexity quite quickly. I did a workshop here on it last week actually for Arts Award. So yeah, it offers a lot, and you can start off with very little. I'll play it again for you. And I'd say within the performances, I see 90% of performances use Hydra in various ways, but a lot of them are because it's just such a very well developed piece of software and so flexible. Beep, boop. Boop. Yeah, so a lot of people are using Hydra to make their live coding visuals at these Algorave events. One more picture. And just to, sorry, I'll go back to this. So just to reiterate what I was saying before about, it's being using open source software, and I'm finding that very surprising because, yeah, coming from the art and design world, or certainly the graphic design world, at least at the time, I'd say that like proprietary was the key word. Proprietary software was being used, as is the knowledge as well. It was all about what you knew. If you had a technique or a skill, you were to hide it and to sell it, and not to really share it. Again, I'm sure things are changed and have changed, but certainly my experience back then was that. So going into the algorithm scene and the live coding scene, it was so open, really very open. Like the point of, well, it's hard to be very secretive when the code is there. Like, if I like what I see, I take it. Well, I have taken a screenshot, and now I can copy paste it. So and the software as well. Like the software is open source, so it's being developed here on GitHub or whatever other GitLab or whatever other place. So it's very hard to have this proprietary knowledge, this secretiveness, when it's all out there. And I find so at least we were able to communicate in many ways a bit more freely and to share a bit more freely because everyone's sharing pretty much everything. Of course, samples that people are using might be different and you might have your own custom textures, but for the large part, the software is there and open. And like, I don't want to make it seem like we're all living in a utopia because with all of our open source software is there. No, not at all. At performances, people were using all different kinds of software. So you would see Ableton Live, you would see Touch Designer, and what else have I got written down? Any other software. You would see other things being used, certainly, but for the large part, but we weren't hating on those people for the reason that they use that software. No, not at all. But again, for the most part, a lot of it was open sourced software. And because it's there on GitHub, people are customizing it, adding to it. Those who do have the skills are adding to it, customizing it. And yeah, so I'd say the choice to use open source software just makes it so that we're not being distracted by it. But of course, there are downsides to using open source software within this thing. And a large part of it is the technical ability, your knowledge. At least the barrier isn't cost, but certainly installing tidal cycles, for example, that's a task. That's a task in itself, which requires a lot of knowledge, and it can be a bit intimidating for newcomers to learn it. They'll need to learn several different things before they even get to using the software. That has been made a lot easier. For example, Hydra, the visual software, is web-based, so it's a lot easier to use, and there is a sort of version of Tidal, which is also web-based, but still, there are softwares out there which do amazing things, but require a barrier. The barrier of entry is the knowledge of using the software or how to install it, really. And there are some other downsides, but there are ways in which it's being made easier. So that's a bit of the software, but what about the community aspect of it? Because as much as we are all gathering around a piece of software, we are also a community of real-life people. And there are communities for Algorave and live coding all across the world. So even though it pretty much started in Sheffield in 2012, I'm based in Birmingham, there's a bit of community there, certainly in London, north of here, like Newcastle as well. But then also, really, wherever is an Algoraver, we have conferences quite often. There's one in Argentina, there's ones at either side of the US. I believe there's ICLC, the International Conference on Live Coding. Oh, I'm not even going to, don't quote me on where it's gone, but it has gone North, South America, gone to not just focusing on the West as well. So there are all of these communities, and we're all gathering online. We're all being, if not contributing code on GitHub, we are talking as well. And where are those conversations happening? So they happen in a distributed manner, but at least when I was joining the live coding community in 2014, a lot of the communications happened on Slack. Now, this is just a screenshot of a generic Slack channel because I didn't take a screenshot of the live coding Slack channel, and even if I did, I didn't want to violate people's privacy, so I didn't share it. But Slack is what Discord is now, I guess. It's like it was the popular chat server of the time. Definitely used more in corporate situations these days, but we were all congregating on Slack. And the benefit of it is you can see on the side you got just like again Discord, you can create different channels. We had channels for different pieces of software. We had channels for different locations. I certainly had one for Birmingham, but it was great. But as with a lot of free services, there are always drawbacks to using it. At the time, the main drawback to using Slack was that they put a limit on how many messages were visible. So the limit at the time was 10,000 messages. Now that might sound like a lot, but maybe for a community of tens of people, sure, you might not reach 10,000 messages for like half a year. But as I said, this is a global community. And so we were finding that the messages were disappearing after a period of weeks or maybe a couple of months, which isn't that great when you're having technical discussions or even any discussions. You might want to look back and see an answer that you gave to someone about how to do a certain thing, and you can't see the message. Now, of course, they did offer paid plans, but again, at the time, the payment plan wasn't based on each server, it was based on each user. So you were paying for the amount of users that you had. I couldn't find the actual price of what it was. But again, even if it was like $5 per user, hundreds of users equals hundreds of dollars already. And this is a volunteer-led thing. There is no Algorave organization. There is no main source of funding. So to expect everyone to pony up the dough to fund a corporate organization for where we don't have control over any of much really, I think just people didn't like it. And so eventually, I don't know how many years afterwards, we moved to using Rocket Chat. So Rocket Chat is essentially open source version of Slack, or an attempt at one. It's functioned very similarly. So would you believe me if I told you this isn't Slack? Still had the same thing. Sidebar with all the channels on. Again, this is a generic one. Sidebar with all the channels on. Messaging area. And this one, it lasted quite a long time. I'll get into why it's not a thing anymore in a moment, or towards the end. But it lasted for a while. We had unlimited access to our archives of messages. And for that reason, it was great. We were able to do whatever. And I won't go into every single place where the Algorave community gathered, because of course we had Facebook groups. Again, they eventually died down as we realized that Mark Zuckerberg is not a very nice person. And it's sometimes in response to scandals, people would eventually move. But there were various communities had their instances on various different social media sites and various different group forum things. But one thing that especially recently has been happening is more focused on decentralization. And so there's this company called, wrong window. So it's not an official Algorave website by any means. It is an organization or a collective called Lurk, and run by two people, Amrik Mansu, and I actually don't know the name of the person, but their username is RRA or RAA. But it's run by them, and as you can see here from the description, they describe themselves as, we are Lurk. We host, facilitate, and archive discussions around net art, net and computational culture, politics, proto and post-free culture practices, experimental sound, new media, software art, and things like that. So they cover a wide range of things, and they offer a bunch of services. including discussion lists. They have blogs, chat, even a streaming platform as well. So if you fancied not streaming your audio, or if you want to do experimental audio streaming, and in the past, I don't know if Lurk did it, but like say you wanted to have a conference or like stream a series of performances, rather than relying on YouTube or Twitch, they would have you could stream to their platform instead. Again, I don't know if Lurk did that, but other people I have seen have done that. So Lurk, again, although not an official Algorave channel, I did notice that once people were leaving things like Twitter or deciding not to congregate on Facebook to organize their communities, a lot of them were going to Lurk, and I actually did as well. So they have a Mastodon server. Mastodon is, you've probably all heard of Mastodon, especially recently since Elon Musk took over Twitter. But it's a open source. I'm going to summarize. I know I'm getting it wrong, but it's like an open source version of Twitter, a decentralized open source version of Twitter, which you can install yourself and run your own communities. Again, there's things that I'm not covering in that. But and so Lurk has their own Mastodon instance, so you could subscribe to it. And again, don't expect you to read all of this, but you can see there's 665 users on it, and I'm one of them. I won't show you my stream because it's mostly rubbish. But so people were kind of moving towards this. And there's another community which I really, really love, and I'll explain why. And it's the Merveille community. Oh, sorry, this is what Mastodon just looks like. Again, generic screenshot. Anyway, so the community that I really do love is the Merveille community. So it's run by two people, Rek and Levine Dulinvega, who they're all about decentralization and small computing, or like more about recycling and working with technology as it is, rather than the general sort of theme around Lurk and Merveille is the rejection of fads, of the chasing of the AI, and well, not necessarily not chasing AI, but just really building your own tools, building things to work within your community rather than just to take over the world or something. So I look at the Merveille community, and they also run their own Mastodon instance, their own server, and they have some rules. And I actually really like these rules. One of them is, you can see there, number 3, one must wear black and white. That means your screen icon, your little avatar, has to be black and white. And I love that rule. I've seen every so often, I see like a message saying to someone, hey, your icon's not black and white, could you change it? Okay, and that might seem a bit like, how dare you impose those rules? But what you might have noticed from the 2 screenshots that I shared, both of them have a very small amount of users. So here we are on 627 users, and this one was at 665. So these are very small communities of people, but they're gathering around topics, rather than Twitter, which is like a big meeting place for everyone, and everyone's shouting at each other. Here it's like, okay, well, maybe instead of having something which is all-encompassing everything, this is just about computing and building your own tools, and one must wear black and white. Cool. So maybe you might get a profile on this website, but then when you want to go talk about art, you might join another server like Assemblages even, sorry. That's a server which I see as well. And maybe if you are, like me, into Magic the Gathering. Anyone else here? No, just me, okay, cool. But anyone else into Magic the Gathering? They've just set up a server for that as well. So it then becomes more about the smaller local community gathering around the topic, and where you can, I guess, I'm going to say impose rules, not in the sort of draconian sense of I will ban you for things, but more just like, hey, let's keep the topic on discussion, please. Let's focus on this. Let's not just use it as a promotion server, as a place. If you want to have an argument, sure, have one, but take it outside. Take it onto a different server, please. We're not going to do that here. And so this, I believe, is why I think people are kind of flocking towards, well, those who are this way inclined, digitally inclined, and know how to work Mastodon, are flocking towards these things because it leaves behind a lot of the mess of corporate social media, which is just one big platform where the rules might change at any point, and you could find yourself deleted for no reason. There's no one to talk to. At least here, you can see at the top who is administered by. There is a human presence on a lot of these things, and that is promoted. So that's. I did notice, of course, at the beginning of the year, and well, at various stages, as I alluded to before, people, at least in my community, tend to be jettisoning Twitter and all other things once there's another scandal, and the biggest scandal at the moment is Elon Musk in general. So there are more and more. I go back to Twitter every so often, and it's quiet. There's no one there, and we're all either on Lurk, Merveille, or some other server which is just for a particular topic. And so it's that's how we're gathering now. We're either we're on these places. And so what are the benefits of this? I've already said some benefits, but for people who run communities, it's you have control. You have control over what's happening. So the data on your server is your data on your server. The rules that you impose are whatever you decide to impose. So it's up to you. And you can also respond to your community, and hopefully, or maybe you're keeping your community small in the hundreds rather than the thousands or millions, you can kind of listen to what the community is saying and how they're guiding it and respond to it. So that's for for people running servers or running communities. That might be a very big benefit. Sorry, 1 second. But there are downsides, and there are many. And I obviously won't speak for those people who are running servers. I read messages posted on Mastodon and read blog posts from other people who are admins of them. But it seems like some of the main downsides is the admin, basically. At least when you're joining Twitter, Facebook, you're handing off all of that admin to someone else. When someone breaks the rules, well, hopefully someone's going to address that. You don't have to do it yourself. Maybe you press the report button, but again, you're pressing report and it's handed off to someone else. Not so if you're running your own Mastodon, Rocket Chat, or whatever instance. You are the admin. Or if not you and whoever else you're running it with. Maybe there's some volunteers. You're all there, people who can be contacted. And that might be a good thing, but it also it's just a lot of work to be doing this, especially as the internet is 24/7. So if y'all go to sleep, you're going to be waking up to something. So that can be one downside of it. And then just, again, the technical knowledge needed to know how to run and install Mastodon. Thankfully, Mastodon itself is developed by someone else, so that's been sort of given to someone else. It's developed by I've forgotten his name now, but developed by someone else. So to that extent, you don't need to know how to program Mastodon or Rocket Chat, but you need to know how to install, how to upgrade, how to manage it. And there's certainly many guides out there, but again, it's just that work. You need to realize that is something that someone needs to do, and that someone might be you. If you're okay with that, cool, carry on. Sorry. And actually, the Financial Times, they tried running their own Mastodon server. That's it. I can't remember how many months it lasted for, but it didn't last long. And they did point to, in this article, I think they glossed over some things and they got some things wrong. But generally, there are things to be learning from that. Like, I wasn't sure if what they were trying to do was create a mass social media site like Twitter or Facebook, or whether just to have one, as some organizations have done. They've had like a Mastodon server specifically for their journalists or their staff. So rather than inviting everyone. But certainly, if you are running something which is inviting anyone and everyone, the laws differ in every country. And I'm certainly not aware of what I'm not a lawyer, but you know, people could post offensive things on there. How are you going to deal with that? Because you could run afoul of whatever laws in whatever country if someone's posting anything bad. Just think what any. Okay, yeah, people. If people are posting anything bad, you could run afoul of any law. So, and they do speak about that in this article. So that is one thing which I don't think some people have thought about so much, but it could happen. So that's sort of like the downside for admins. But what about for users? And this is where I'll sort of end. Me, I'm a user of these services. I'm a bit of a programmer, but there's no way I'm going to be being an admin on Mastodon on a server. So the downside for people like me, who are artists, is definitely about reach. So over on my now dormant Twitter account, I had 4,000 followers, gained over a period of 10 years. I can't believe I was on that website for so long. But, you know, and I know for a fact I have gotten lots of work from just posting random crap on Twitter. There have been times where someone has gone, oh, I've seen your work, could we hire you for a thing and pay you lots of money? That is a thing that happens. Now, over on Mastodon, I have like 400 followers. And yes, it's not all about numbers, but it is about reach. I need people to be seeing what I'm doing because I do need to work. Certainly the quality of discussions over on Mastodon is a lot higher, is a lot better. I can engage with people a lot more, but I still am trying to have a career as an artist. And so there is a question of reach. And so I need to be able to be in a place which I can communicate with galleries, with curators, with organizations, with musicians and other artists. And it is a chicken and egg thing, you know, like, do I wait until they're there and then start posting? But if I don't post, they're not going to get there. So I need to do, this is a bit of a chicken and egg situation going on. And it's one of the reasons that I still maintain an Instagram presence. Like Instagram, thankfully Mark Zuckerberg hasn't yet messed it completely up. Like it still is, there are many, many, many issues, but he hasn't gone completely, you know, he hasn't messed it up completely a lot. So this is why I still, and as do many of the algorithmers and live coders who have gotten rid of their Twitter profiles, they still maintain an Instagram one because we need to be able to reach people. We want to get gigs, we want to get paid for doing our stuff. And so that's it. And it's the convenience factor because there are open source versions of Instagram. And that convenience, I did mention earlier that, and this only 2 more slides and then I'm done. But I did mention earlier that Rocket Chat, instead of using Slack, we used Rocket Chat. Well, it lasted a while, but then eventually we all got rid, oh dear. The end? No. Eventually we did get rid of Rocket Chat because everyone started moving over to Discord. Now Discord is now, you know, what Slack was. It's the new place where everyone's gathering, creating their own servers for specific topics. So yeah, I'm on the Magic the Gathering server there instead of this other forum. And so we're all gathering on these places. But Rocket Chat is proprietary. It's a closed source thing. And, you know, I'm sure one day they could impose whatever rules that they want. But for now we're there. But that's because that's where the people are. That's where the community has gone to. And the community, to a large extent, dictates it. As much as we have these services, Lurk has these services, Mavet has these services, if the community has decided that it's sometimes the convenience factor of this works rather than and this is where people are gathering, then unfortunately sometimes that's what needs to happen, that's what's going to happen. And then finally, is this for you? Is decentralization, is for your community, is it a thing that you should do? Yes, but maybe, and probably no. But maybe yes. So you got to think about really what is it you're wanting to do. If it is for your community, and especially if your community is small and you're gathering around a particular topic and you can sustain the conversation for months, years to come, then yeah, do that. And especially if you have a technologist who is enthusiastic, maybe you're paying them, or there's volunteers who are willing to contribute money towards a server, as happens with Lurk, then yes, please do it. And in fact, I read a really good blog post by a person called Nora. You can't read all of that for sure, but like in there, they do say, they're talking about the future of the Fediverse and Mastodon, and they're saying that keep it small. keep your servers small. One of the really big downsides to Twitter, to Facebook and everything, is that it's just so big. Everyone's just shouting at each other. You can't hear, read anything, because there's just too much of everything. I believe that Lurk, Merve, and all the others are existing and thriving because it's a small community. The Algorave community, for as much as we played all these international festivals, within the music scene, we're still a very niche thing. And it's when it gets large that the conversations just veer off and it gets too loud. So yeah, keep it small, keep it local. Thanks for listening. See, first slide, same at the end.
Thank you very much. I reckon we've got time for maybe a question or two. Anyone?
What is the Fediverse?
Oh, Fediverse. It's just another phrase to describe all of the Mastodon instances. So like Merve, Mastodon.social, and Lurk. They're all like their own installations of Mastodon, but collectively they're called a federation. The Federation universe. The Fediverse. Yeah, it's so nerdy. I love it.
Sean, did you have one?
Didn't ask the first question, that's good. There's a question I wanted to ask for a long time actually about the aesthetic of Algorave.
Sure.
Because it's very 8-bit, it has a strong visual aesthetic, and I wondered if that, I'm sure it's intentional, but I wonder if it's a product of the software or that somebody or the community decided that is our aesthetic.
I think partially it's a software thing. So, there is the demo scene people who are making visuals and music, sometimes on Commodore 64s, computers from the 80s, and they're playing with the limitations. And sometimes those limitations breed visuals which look like 8-bit because you're working with very limited hardware and software. So that's what demo scene community is. And similarly here as well, we're working with Hydra. It runs in the browser. You're not it's not relying on the most up-to-date GPU thing ever. So it needs to be running in a browser. So of course there are going to be limitations to, I guess, how 3D everything looks and how smooth. So I think, of course, I can't speak for Olivia, what their thoughts were behind what kind of look it gives. But certainly I think there is a response to the limitations of the hardware. But also in this specific sense though, Olivia did talk about how it was inspired by video synthesizers, and video synthesizers of course kind of run on composite video hardware, which in itself has very 80s aesthetics to it.
I was thinking some of my old video effects, video mixers look very similar.
Yeah, so it's definitely inspired by it.
Aesthetically, are there alternative aesthetics within the scene? Was everyone quite focused on a certain style?
Musically or visually?
Visually in particular.
Visually, no, there's not a certain aesthetic. I guess it would be, again, I don't want to speak for everyone, but things that I see. Repetition. So, computers are great at maths, right? So let's make artwork that looks like maths. So you'll see lots of repeating patterns or patterns that modulate and change over time. Things where you can probably break down the function, but that's sometimes largely a response to the fact that it's been made with code, right? Which is sort of maths and logic. How that will develop further on, it's however artists choose to use it. Sometimes I try to make more organic looking artwork with this sort of stuff. So sometimes I use Blender, for example, and in conjunction with Hydra, so using it as a texture, just to make something that looks slightly more organic, painterly. But it's just down to individual artists how they use the software. But largely, it's repeating functions, both musically and even if you go to dance music, if you break down dance music, it probably might be a few patterns repeated for 20 minutes, a few repeatable patterns, but then it's how you add in that entropy and the noise. Cool. Yes.
No, I don't know who was allowing it. No.
Last one, yeah. I'll give a quick answer, I promise.
Yeah, well, it was very straight up question. I'm really interested in, you talked right at the end of this about, and as an artist you need to make money and you need to earn bread and butter. Going back to the algo raves, when you have the events, how do you as an artist or anybody who kind of Like, how do you earn out of it?
Well,
Or not at all? Is it like a keep it that? Sorry, I don't.
yeah. Obviously, like everything, it depends. So sometimes when I'm being asked to play events, I can be asking for money. Like it depends who's asking, really, isn't it? But yeah, it's you're compensating someone for their time, whether that be plumbing or playing an event. And so I always ask for money when I do events, and sometimes, actually, yeah, nearly all the time they pay. But it is still your compensation for time. Hopefully that answers that. But if you have another follow-up question, you can ask. We can chat.
Later in the
Yes.
last section, if that's all
Cool.
right. Fine, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, thanks everyone for listening. All right,
Brilliant.
switcheroo.